We'll discuss about bronchiectasis today. Okay, bronchiectasis is defined as abnormal and permanent dilatation of medium-sized bronchi. Okay, ectasia. The term ectasia means dilatation. You know that, right? The term ectasia means dilatation. So bronchiectasis means abnormal and permanent dilatation of medium-sized bronchi. Even though medium-sized bronchi are predominantly affected, it can also affect the smaller bronchi and larger bronchi, right? So coming to causes, what is the cause of bronchiectasis? This bronchiectasis is a final result of various diseases. Okay, it is a final result of various diseases. So coming to infectious causes, childhood viral infections, pneumonia, tuberculosis. So remember this: in 50% of cases, the underlying etiology cannot be identified. So idiopathic, in up to half of the cases, it is idiopathic. So it is attributed to childhood viral infection in predominant cases. Predominantly childhood viral infections, pneumonia, tuberculosis, immune system abnormalities, cystic fibrosis, which is not common in our country, but it is in Western countries. It is common. Europe and America, it is very common. Cystic fibrosis, foreign body aspiration, connective tissue disorders, allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. These are all the causes of bronchiectasis. So in olden days, when there were no vaccination available and antibiotics, before the invention of antibiotics and vaccinations, this bronchiectasis was very common. So after introduction of vaccinations for various viral diseases and antibiotics for various infections, so this incidence of bronchiectasis has come down, right? So what exactly happens in bronchiectasis? So in bronchiectasis, you know that there is defense mechanism. What is the defense mechanism of our respiratory system? In previous class, in theory class, I have described about the respiratory system defense mechanism starting from nose, the hair in nose, right? So the mucociliary escalator, which is very important, mucociliary escalator is very important. All the organisms, offending organisms, or foreign particles which are entering the lungs will be trapped in the mucus lining the airway epithelium. Okay, lining the airway epithelium, which will be moved towards the nasopharynx by the beat of cilia. Okay, so this mucociliary escalator is a defense mechanism. So what happens in bronchiectasis? So this mucociliary escalator, there will be one first starting incident, that is some viral infection or some pneumonia, which will be causing damage to the local mucociliary escalator. The local defense mechanism is lost. So because of this loss of defense mechanism, at some point in the tracheobronchial tree, the patient is prone to recurrent infection. This will further cause damage and will lead to dilatation of the bronchi. This is the pathophysiology. Okay, so first there will be some infection, or for example, if you look at the foreign body aspiration, if the foreign body aspiration is there, that will be physically damaging the local cilia. Okay, this foreign body which is aspirated, which is particularly common in children. Okay, particularly common in children, and this foreign body will physically damage the cilia in the bronchi. So after, because of this damage to the local cilia, there will be loss of defense mechanism against a recurrent infection that leads to bronchiectasis. And remember this: not all who get infections will develop bronchiectasis. There is some underlying susceptibility. So if immune system abnormalities are there, right? So connective tissue disorders are there, which will have some impact on the structure and function of tracheobronchial tree, that will lead to bronchiectasis. Allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. What is allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis? Can anyone tell what is this allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis? So this allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis is a hypersensitivity reaction of lungs, okay, of lungs to aspergillus antigens, right? So these are all the causes which lead to bronchiectasis. Coming to symptoms, what happens in bronchiectasis? The patient with bronchiectasis will come to you with chronic cough with purulent expectoration. Remember that there are some diseases which present in acutely. Okay, there are some, for example, pneumonia. Okay, pneumonia usually presents once in a while. Okay, whereas bronchiectasis, bronchial asthma, COPD, these are chronic diseases. They will be presenting to you with recurrent symptoms. So these bronchiectasis patients will come to you with chronic cough, long-standing cough with recurrent cough, that is purulent expectoration will be there, shortness of breath, hemoptysis, wheeze, and fever. Okay, so these are all the symptoms of bronchiectasis. Coming to signs. So on auscultation, there will be coarse inspiratory crackles, there will be wheeze, and there will be finger clubbing. And on examination. So here you can see finger clubbing in a patient of bronchiectasis. Types of bronchiectasis. There are three types of bronchiectasis: cylindrical bronchiectasis or tubular bronchiectasis. You can see here, this is cylindrical or tubular bronchiectasis. This is varicose or varicoid bronchiectasis. This is cystic or cyclar bronchiectasis. Among these three, okay. So even though there is some some literature says that cylindrical bronchiectasis is seen in pneumonia and cystic bronchitis is seen in some immune abnormalities. So it is not always difficult to identify whether the underlying cause is based on underlying cause. Okay, so if you look at this cylindrical bronchiectasis or tubular bronchiectasis, second is varicose, and third is cystic. Out of these three, cystic bronchiectasis is regarded as the most severe form. Coming to diagnosis of bronchiectasis, a person who is coming to you with signs and symptoms suggestive of bronchiectasis, and patient, suppose patient is having chronic cough, expectoration, a lot of expectoration. Patient will be coming to purulent expectoration, large quantities of expectoration. So this is the reason why whenever you are coming to clinical rounds, okay, you'll be asking about the quantity of sputum. Okay, you'll be asking about the quantity of sputum. So usually in bronchiectasis, patient will have large amounts of expectoration. So a person with chronic cough with large amounts of expectoration, shortness of breath, wheeze, clubbing. So you are, based on these clinical presentation, you will be suspecting. First, you will be suspecting that he may be having bronchiectasis. Then how to evaluate? So first thing is chest radiograph. So you will evaluate, first initial investigation of choice is chest radiograph. In many cases, it will show you clear picture. Okay, so for confirmation, suppose chest radiograph sensitivity is low. Okay, if small bronchiectasis is there, you may not be able to identify on routine chest radiograph. In such a situation, you can go for high resolution CT scan. So this high resolution CT scan is investigation of choice because of high sensitivity. Even small bronchiectasis can also be visualized on high resolution CT scan. Prior to its advent, bronchography was used before the invention of CT scan. Okay, before the availability of CT scan, there was bronchography, which is semi-invasive. So in what they what they used to do in bronchography was, they used to keep a Rayleigh tube into the trachea. Through the Rayleigh tube, radio opaque material was pushed into the trachea. Okay, so after a particular time, they will use to take chest radiograph. So this radio opaque material will line the interior of the tracheobronchial tree. So whenever there is bronchiectasis, that could be visualized as outpouchings. Okay, so this bronchography is not used nowadays. So in CT scan, how does it appear? Ring-like shadows, tram-line shadows will be seen. Ring-like shadows and tram-line shadows, signet ring appearance. These are all the findings of bronchiectasis on high-resolution CT scan. Ring-like shadows, tram-line appearance, signet ring appearance. So these are all the features of bronchiectasis on high-resolution CT scan. Here you can see routine chest radiograph. You can see, you may not be identifying clearly here. There are reticular shadows. Okay, there are reticular shadows here, and there are small cystic changes. You can, if I don't think you are able to identify, but there are small cystic changes here. Okay, small cystic changes here, which is suggestive of bronchiectasis. So here you can see tramline appearance. This is tramline appearance. Okay, there is wall thickening of the bronchial wall thickening, and they are going parallel. Usually they are supposed to, this bronchi should taper as they go towards the periphery. Okay, there should be tapering of the bronchi as they go towards the periphery, but they are parallel to each other. This is suggestive of bronchiectasis. Tramline this is known as tramline appearance, suggestive of bronchiectasis. There are ring shadows. You can see ring shadows here. This is ring shadow. Okay, so this is ring shadow. There is signet ring appearance here. There is clear signet ring appearance. If you see, there is pulmonary artery. This is accompanying pulmonary artery. This is bronchus. Okay, this is accompanying pulmonary artery. This is bronchus. This is known as signet ring appearance. This is typically seen in bronchiectasis. So cystic bronchiectasis, you can see this is the most severe form. So cystic bronchiectasis is most severe form of bronchiectasis. So how will you evaluate? After you have confirmed that patient is having bronchiectasis. What to do next? So you want to evaluate the possible underlying etiology, right? So patient may be coming to you for the first time, or he may be coming to you with exacerbation. Exacerbation means symptoms, aggravation of symptoms. Okay, patient is presenting to you with increased cough, increased breathlessness, increased purulence of sputum, or increased volume of sputum. This is known as exacerbation. So whether patient is coming to you for the first time, or patient is coming to you with exacerbation, you will be evaluating with the following tests. So first you will be sending the sputum for examination to know if the underlying infection is there. So remember this, it is a vicious cycle. It is a vicious cycle. Infection leads to development of bronchiectasis. Bronchiectasis patients are prone to develop recurrent infection. So what is the underlying bacterial infection? So underlying viral infection is difficult, but you have this option. You can look for underlying bacterial infection is there or not in order to treat that. So bacterial infections, they cause exacerbations, right? So you would send the sputum of the patient for gram staining, fungal staining, acid phosphobacillus staining, cultures. Then total serum Ig levels. This is to know whether patient is having allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. More than 1000. Okay, total serum Ig levels more than 1000 is confirmative of allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. So Aspergillus fumigator specific IgE or IgG antibodies. Aspergillus fumigator specific IgE or IgG antibodies, because they are all available options for us. So that if suppose patient is having allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis, treatment will be, first line of treatment is definitely corticosteroids. Then you can add antifungals also. So this is the reason why you are evaluating the patient. So total serum Ig levels you will be checking, and Aspergillus fumigator specific IgE or IgG, you can ask for the testing. Sweat chloride test or genetic screening for cystic fibrosis. You know that even though this is uncommon in our country, in Western countries it is very common. So most common cause of the bronchiectasis in Western countries is cystic fibrosis. So cystic fibrosis treatment has some different okay. So sweat chloride test and genetic screening test for cystic fibrosis. Studies for ciliary dysfunction. So any abnormality in the ciliary function, okay, any abnormality in ciliary function, whether it is structural abnormality or functional abnormality, that can be done. Okay, there are certain conditions like Cartagena syndrome where the cilia are abnormal, cilia motility is affected, which can lead to recurrent infections and bronchiectasis. Connective tissue disease profile. So connective tissue diseases, the patient is, especially in rheumatoid arthritis and Sjogren's syndrome, patients develop bronchiectasis. So this evaluation is important to know the etiology and to further guide the treatment. Coming to microbiology in bronchiectasis, what is most common causes of bacterial exacerbations include Haemophilus influenzae, Staphylococcus aureus, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, Streptococcus pneumoniae, coliforms like Klebsiella, Enterobacter, Pseudomonas. So these are all the most commonly implicated organisms in the exacerbations of bronchiectasis. A patient who is having bronchiectasis and coming to you with recurrent exacerbation. So these are all the common organisms cultured from the sputum of various patients. So this is important. You will be sending the sputum for culture. Based on the culture and sensitivity report, you will be treating the patient with antibiotics. So if you because it takes some time, that is 2 days time is required in order to get the culture report. You should know what could be the most common organ, okay, what could be the underlying organ. So based on that, you will be starting him on broad spectrum antibiotic. So chronic colonization is common with Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Same thing happens with cystic fibrosis patient. In cystic fibrosis patients also, chronic colonization is seen with Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Same thing happens in bronchiectasis patients also. Coming to treatment of bronchiectasis, First, we'll look into the exacerbation treatment. So treatment of exacerbation includes intravenous or oral antibiotic depending upon the organism implicated and culture report. So intravenous or oral antibiotics, we start broad spectrum antibiotic, and again here, okay, we'll look just like cystic fibrosis. I told you in the previous class, whether the patient has developed the symptoms and fever, okay, in community setting. So patient was all right, okay, who in last 3 months patient was all right, all of a sudden last few days patient is developing fever and cough, purulent expectoration. So it is in a community setting, the possibility of organisms is pneumococcus is more common. So this is important. This background information is important. For example, who was hospitalized recently, in 1 week back, patient was hospitalized for some other reason. Okay, the bronchiectasis patient was hospitalized for some other reason, and he went home, and after 1 week he has come to you with exacerbation of bronchiectasis. Now this patient may be having exacerbation because of the hospital acquired infection. So then you have to consider other possibilities, then you have to treat in that way. Okay, so methicillin resistant staphylococcus aureus, these are all the possibilities where in a hospital acquired setting. Okay, intravenous or oral antibiotic depending upon the organism implicated in culture report. For streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenza, moraxella catarrhasis, we start with amoxicillin clavulanate combination. Initially we start with amoxicillin and clavulanate combination. So based on clinical response, if patient is not responding and we get culture report after 2 days, then we can change the antibiotic. Methicillin resistant staphylococcus aureus patient. Okay, if the culture is showing methicillin resistant staphylococcus aureus, okay, then you can, there is options are intravenous vancomycin, rifampicin, trimethoprim, teicoplanin. So these can be used. For pseudomonas infection, so pseudomonas, I told you, in chronic colonization with pseudomonas is common, and especially whenever the lungs are in a damaged lung, pseudomonas infection is very common. Okay, in a damaged lung, pseudomonas colonization and infection is very common. So for pseudomonas infection, patient can be treated with these antibiotics: ceftazidime, aztreonam, piperacillin tazobactam, meropenem, colistin, aminoglycoside, ciprofloxacin. And whenever you are treating a patient who is having pseudomonas infection, it is preferable to give antibiotic combination. Okay, antibiotic combination. Most commonly we give piperacillin tazobactam plus aminoglycosides or piperacillin tazobactam plus fluoroquinolones. So nebulized bronchodilators. Remember, this bronchiectasis presentation is similar to bronchial asthma, and some of the patient of bronchiectasis are having allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis, which is a component. One of the components in allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis is bronchial asthma. So treatment will be in the same line as bronchiectasis, and some treatment will be similar to cystic fibrosis. So nebulized bronchodilators will be given. Nebulized antibiotics with tobramycin or colistin can be given. Oral or parenteral steroids, particularly in allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. Non-invasive ventilatory support can also be given whenever the patient is in respiratory distress. So accessory muscles are working. A patient with bronchiectasis is coming to you with exacerbation, and patient is in respiratory distress. That means patient is having accessory muscles working. Okay, so patient is sweating, accessory muscles working. Okay, so there is paradoxical abdominal movement. In such a situation, you can, when patient is conscious, you can try this non-invasive ventilatory support to reduce the load on respiratory muscles. Adequate hydration is important. See, remember this same thing, adequate hydration is important in bronchiectasis as well as cystic fibrosis, because in bronchiectasis, if the patient is dehydrated, so there is a chance of the secretions in respiratory secretion getting inspissated, that is drying up of secretions can be there. Because of this dryness of secretions, it becomes difficult to remove the infection. So these secretions which are containing organisms should be removed, so they should be expectorated. So if the patient is not adequately hydrated, it becomes difficult, they become sticky and they will be adhering to the bronchial walls, so it becomes difficult to remove the secretions, and they can lead to collapse. They will be blocking small airways. The secretions which are not coming out will be blocking the small airways, leading to collapse of lung and further aggravating the situation. So adequate hydration is important in bronchiectasis patients. Oxygen supplementation. Patient is in respiratory failure, that is saturation is less than 90%. Okay, when SpO2 saturation is less than 90%, then oxygen supplementation is required. Chest physiotherapy is required. Chest physiotherapy to clear the secretions. Chest physiotherapy is to clear the secretions, which is important, because the pooling up of secretions which will lead to further infections. Okay, this pooling up of secretions in the ectatic bronchi, that is dilated bronchi, will lead to recurrent infections, and that will further damage the bronchi. Long-term management. Okay, long-term management. Patient after stabilize, you have stabilized the exacerbated patient. Okay, so long-term treatment is required, because this is a chronic case. So don't think that just like, so for example, if pneumonia, after giving antibiotics for 1 week to 10 days, patient will be relieved, then there is no need of treatment. But in case of bronchiectasis, which is a chronic disease, patient needs long-term management. So So inhaled bronchodilators and inhaled corticosteroids are important. This treatment line in same lines of asthma. Inhaled bronchodilators and inhaled corticosteroids. Smoking cessation is important. Annual vaccination against seasonal influenza, pneumococcal vaccination, chest physiotherapy with various airway clearance techniques. So patient should be educated about airway clearance techniques. Okay, there are you can ask the patient's attendants to do gentle percussion or gentle percussion over the chest of the patient, so the secretions will be coming. So these are all the important things in the long term management. Coming to surgery, role of surgery in bronchiectasis. So even though there is only some limited number of people who require surgery in bronchiectasis, but what are the prerequisites? So when the disease is limited to a segment or lobe, for example, bronchiectasis is diffuse, all the five lobes, okay, all the five lobes are affected, or one lobe on right side, two lobes on left side are affected. So it is surgery is not indicated. So it should be limited to a segment or a lobe, so that that segment or lobe can be removed. So when surgery is indicated in a person with limited disease, okay, in a person of bronchiectasis who is having this disease limited to a segment or lobe, and the bronchiectasis patient is presenting to you with recurrent hemoptysis or recurrent infection causing exacerbation affecting the function of normal lung. Remember that. Okay, even though the bronchiectasis is limited to one lobe. Okay, so whenever is present, patient is having infection, recurrent infection, that other lung which is normal will also be affected. So in order to avoid this other lung function to deteriorate, so to avoid this other lungs function deterioration, you have to indicate surgery. Okay, so recurrent hemoptysis or infection causing exacerbations affecting the function of normal lung, or presence of lung abscess which is not adequately responding to antibiotics. So these are all the situations where you can advise surgery for a patient of bronchiectasis. So thank you. Any doubts?
No, sir.
Shall I conclude? Okay, thank you.